Dwayne has asked me to do today, get some of your ideas, some for guidelines for what we can do in the future.
The youth are involved with Move to Amend. That's, if you want to go where the youth are, that's where they are. They're involved with SWMTA, South Central Wisconsin Move to Amend, the Occupy movement. That's been one of the key areas that they're talking about. The first thing we need to do is change this. It's at the base of everything. You may have other issues, but if you don't change this, you don't change anything. I think to me, one of the things preparing over long term that is really important is that we begin to develop the infrastructure to deal with trigger events. And what I mean by trigger events are things are going to happen, nobody can know what they are, that is going to awaken people out of Dancing with the Stars, and they're going to look around and say there's a problem. And if we can be ready to respond with a solution, a difference, a change, and if we can respond in one voice, I think we can make a difference. So my suggestion at this juncture is that we organize and think of ways to develop so we can begin to speak in one voice, no matter what our specific thing is or what we're working on, and that will lead towards a point where we can have an impact. Because the worst thing that can happen is people kind of wake up, look around, no solution, there is nothing that can be done. I like my TV set, I'm going back. So let's organize so that we can have the solutions and put them out there, and also let people know there is a problem, because the mass media is not going to let people know that there was 100,000 plus people in New York talking about climate change, and at the same time the UN was looking at it, and so on. So.
In one of my emails that we all have the power of the universe within each one of us. That's one prong of a two-pronged path to power. The other prong is a concept, to know that we don't know. Somebody mentioned in one of the speeches about arrogance on the liberal side. We've come out of a century where we had the greatest living standard in the United States, the greatest wealth equality. It was just handed to us. To know that we don't know, I've struggled with that, but it's the source of both fear and anger and hatred. And it's stymie to opening up the power of the universe into our functionality. So I just ask you to think about it, to know that you don't know. Some of us here have a great deal of knowledge, but at the bottom we have to know that we do not know everything. And that act cuts down on the fear underneath. If we can discipline ourselves to know that we don't know everything, we maximize the use of what we do know. So that's my, and then the power of the universe will come through.
Hey, 82-year-old retired Presbyterian pastor. I'd like to speak to the concern that the gentleman over here said about cultural values. All cultures have values, and they have their own gods. I take you back to Moses coming down and finding that the people were worshiping the golden calf. Our golden calf happens to be the greenback, and we don't want to admit that. And as a result of that, we're all captivated by that, and therefore blinded to the reality of the decisions that we need to make. I don't have an answer for what I've said, but I firmly believe this. Thank you.
I'm going to make a plug for something that people can do that's very tangible and very concrete. This coming Wednesday, 10 o'clock at the state capitol, there's going to be a hearing on a bill called AB 1. It's the first volley in a frontal assault on public education, an effort to turn our public schools into private for-profit schools. AB 1 is basically a bill which would over time change public schools into private charter schools by calling them failing schools. There's been a real assault over the last few years of taking away critically needed resources away from our public schools and a voucher system which they're proposing to expand, which would take funding off the top from every school district in the state. And it's something that needs to be opposed, and if every person in this room would take the time between now and next Wednesday morning to either go to the assembly hearing or to contact their representative in the Senate and the assembly and let them know this is not acceptable. That's a way that you can have a very tangible and very real impact on something that's right now, because the attack on public education is an attack on everything that we stand for. It's basically the opening volley in an effort to privatize first our schools and then the rest of the public services. So please take the time between now and Wednesday, contact your representative, tell them, look up online if you want to see the particulars. It's called AB1, Assembly Bill 1, and it's basically an effort, they call it accountability. But the bottom line is what they're doing is they're trying to create a double standard for public schools and private for-profit schools, and eventually shut down the public schools. So, thank you.
Thank you. I agree with we're how to say, divide and conquer. We're already divided, and we have to speak in more in one voice. Representative Capenga was at a town hall meeting this Wednesday, and then Robin Voss was on TV this morning, talking about things. And we can give him a lot of information, maybe more. Capenga said he gets about 100 emails a day, to respond to, and maybe my one doesn't compare to his, 99 others that he gets per day. Privatization, something that kind of slipped is you all paid your tax bill, or for real estate tax bill. You noticed that the only savings was we moved money out of the tech college deduction, and we moved it to the general fund. Now, if you go to tech college, I went to Madison and then also to Oak Creek, they moved the funding of the tech colleges to the general fund, which means the legislature is going to control it rather than the taxpayers controlling what's going on. They're pretty depressed because they see privatization of the tech college system, in the privy of the legislature, not the voters or the people that pay the taxes. And we have a privatization just a couple of blocks from here. We have the Ethan Allen School for Boys that's for sale. It's for sale as a prison. And it's still for sale, and my two local reps don't like deer in the headlights kind of look. It's sold as a private prison, just a couple blocks from here. They'll close down Lincoln Hills up north, fire those state workers, privatize the school, a place over here, we'll have a private prison. I mean, that is for sale. And we just, we don't think about it. Oh, our tax bill went down. We don't think about it. Then today in my email, as you all did, let's go here, let's go there, let's go everywhere. And all of a sudden, there's things going on in our state that are scary. And they, prioritize AB1, as an example. Last year, AB1, I think, was our Secretary of State, eliminated his issues, all right, because they had these pockets of information. So, what's the solution, all right? Maybe a common language. We don't even agree on what we should say or what's our priority. Bold reforms. No, they're really flimsy deforms. But they get the stage. We can't get on the radio station, so maybe all agreeing on what some of the issues are for Wisconsin. I don't even care what's going on the other side of the country, because there's a lot of things happening here in Madison in just 3 days. Letters to the editor, are pretty easy to do. Just keep on, pumping them. Comments on public radio. We do know that Republicans do not look at the same things that we look at. They don't trust public radio or the papers. You remember, they made a comparison of what Republicans view as being trustworthy and what we view as being trustworthy is completely different. So they don't even read the same things we read. So, what is it that we read in common, and maybe just our conversation, what we agree upon as being main issues, so we don't look like we're divided.